Hello again, welcome back to Hangar 51. Today we're going to do a build on the new to me, not really a new airplane. It's been out for over a few years now, two different paint schemes. The AVIOS HU-16 Albatross. Now the word Albatross is used on at least three different airplanes I know. There's a World War II biplane, a German plane called an Albatross. And there's an L-39 jet that's called the Albatross. And then there's this HU-16 that's called an Albatross. But the one we're talking about is the one from Hobby King that is a water plane. Okay? Massive. This thing is huge, guys. I don't know if you can get the gist of how big this thing is, but it's huge. This is all plastic on the bottom. It's got a beautiful hard plastic bottom for flying. You can fly it off grass, you can fly it off water, snow, and it'll handle it just fine. So let me start with. I'm going to give you a few pointers before we start the build. First thing is the screws. You're going to need a 2 meter or a 2 millimeter hex drive. You're going to need a 2.5 millimeter hex drive. You're going to need two different size Phillips screwdrivers for the different screws. Okay, so let me go through the screws. These are the big, super big, long, and this is the 2.5 hex. These hold the main wing on. Okay, the wing is pinned in the front, which you'll see when I go to assemble it, and then these two screws go in the back, and these are the screws that hold the wing on. And they're the 2.5. You have two really skinny long Phillips head screws, and this is I'm going to be using my very little Phillips head screwdriver for this because these are tiny. These hold the rudder on. Okay, now they go up to the bottom of the fuselage and they screw into these two plastic pieces. This is a sheet metal type screw, not a machine screw that would go into a nut, but this one threads into the plastic. Okay, and you're going to need the small screwdriver for that. Then we've got two fairly long sheet metal screws, longer than the four others. You get four sheet metal screws and then two longer ones. The two longer ones actually go through the back of the fuselage on each side to capture this hinge on the bottom of the rudder. It says right in the instructions, do not glue this. Okay, they don't need to glue this because they want you to be able to take it off if you have to replace it. So you don't glue this, you pinch it with these two screws. They come in from both sides and they just grab, they pinch this part of the hinge to hold that in. Okay, so you don't glue that, you just pinch it with these two screws. And those are a Phillips screw. And then you have four more Phillips screws that hold these sponsons to the wing. Now, they fit on both ways, and the instructions don't tell you one from the other. They're not marked anywhere that I can see left and right. They fit on both ways. The difference is that one side of this has some detail on it. There's a little inspection panel right here on it, and then another panel on this side of it. And the other side doesn't have anything on it, just one seam. Okay, so you can put it on whichever way you want, but there is an inside and an outside. So you need to determine before you start screwing them on whether you want these inspection hole things visible from the outside of the wing, looking at the airplane from the end of the wing, okay, because this is the fuselage at this end, or not. So just be aware of that. When you're putting it together, make a conscious decision whether you want those visible from the outside, because if you put them on the inside, you can't see past the fuselage. You'll never see the detail that's on the inside, and that's why there is no detail on this side. At least that's the way I take it. They don't specify it in the instructions, so I'm just letting you know. Take a good look at them, and if you want that stuff visible, the inspection hole panel and stuff, then make sure you have them facing to the outside, because there is a left and a right. Yeah, it just depends on how you want it. It'll fit on either way. And this is the one that you're going to use the four sheet metal screws with a bigger Phillips head screw are what hold these on. Okay, these screws go in through the top here to hold these on. And then your final 2mm machine screws go through these pins here. The pins that hold this to the center section of the wing. There's a brass insert inside these 2 pins with a machine thread in it, like a nut. And then you got the 4 machine screws that use the 2mm hex bit. And these are what hold, you're going to thread these in through the bottom of the center section to secure the outer wing panels to this, to here. We're using the machine screws. So that's how all the screws work and where they go. So that's the first thing I want to go over. The next thing before I build, there's one more thing I want you guys to be aware of. When you put this on, 2 things. First, take the lead that goes back here, and it's not going to go easy. You're going to have to fool with it a little bit, but get that wire in an S in here so that this can get pushed down inside the fuselage vertically like this. Okay, you want to make sure you can get that down in there, because when you plug the rudder in through this, you're going to have to stuff that wire down in there. It's going to be much easier to get it trained first before you put that on. Get it trained to go down in there so that once this is on, you can push that, it'll just go down easy. Now, the instructions want you to glue this on with CA. I don't recommend that. Do not put this on with CA. First of all, it doesn't even need to be glued at all, because the rudder, the vertical rudder, this has a groove in it that goes into the groove on the fuselage. So once you put this in the groove, it's secure. I mean, it can't move. It can't go forward, backwards. It can't twist. It's there. And then this goes on over top of it and screws through the fuselage to hold this on. Okay? Like that. So it can't come off. So there's really no reason to glue it. I'm going to glue mine, but I'm going to use just a little bit of contact cement. Okay? Do not use CA. If you use CA, you can't get this off. All right? If you break the fuselage, you're going to have to buy one of these and the fuselage. And I think this piece here is like 20 bucks just for this. So if you break the fuselage and you want to reuse this and you glue it on with CA, you're not going to be able to reuse it. You're going to have to replace it. So don't glue it on at all, or glue it on with a little bit of contact cement. It's not going anywhere. It can't come off. The vertical holds it in place. But for a little extra security, you can glue it, but just use a tiny bit of contact cement so that you can get it back off in the event that you have to, replace it. If you use CA, you're not getting it off, and you'll have to replace it. I don't recommend that. If you've watched my show before, I'm pretty adamant about telling you guys to not use CA or epoxy when gluing on parts that are replaceable. I like epoxy for replacing or repairing something that's broke. Like if this broke in half out here, I would epoxy it back together, because it's not supposed to come apart. So I don't want it to come apart. So I would glue it with something permanent. CA if you want, or epoxy. That kind of repair is fine for that. But I would not do it for anything that you can possibly remove and replace, because you can't get that apart. That's when I use contact cement. So I'm going to put a little contact cement on this, and just a little bit, just right here, a little bit on the flat spot here. This is already no paint in that area right here. They already took the paint off. So you're going to just get a little bit of glue in there, and that's it. And that's all I'm going to do. All right, so be right back with that. I'm going to get the glue and glue it, and then we'll continue with the screw together. So Just stand by. Okay, welcome back. So I went ahead and glued this on. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with contact cement, listen, most of the airplanes you get comes with a tube of glue. This is contact cement. You know, what is it called? Foam tack. Foam tack is contact cement. This is the same thing, basically. Not the brand foam tack, I don't believe, I don't know. But same thing. This is contact cement. When you put something together with this, it stays together until you want it apart, and then it's going to be a fight, but it will come apart. It will release and pull off. It might take a little foam with it, you know, but it's easy repairable damage. If you put it on with epoxy or CA, it's going to destroy it trying to get it off. Or it's going to be a lot more work. I'm not going to say it's impossible. So let's just say I crashed this, destroy the fuselage, but this is in perfect condition. What you would do is actually take a knife and cut the whole fuselage off right back there to release it from there. And then you can whittle on the back side down to this again, you know, cutting it with a knife and trying to peel it off in little teeny pieces. And it's going to be very time consuming, but you could possibly save it so that it'll fit on the new fuselage. But this way it will be a very easy repair to take this off and then put it on the new one. So that's why I like anything that's replaceable like this and this. I like using a glue that will let go, and so that's why I use the contact cement. Okay, so we've got that glued on. We're going to plug this in. Now make sure you plug this in the right way, guys. Don't get it backwards. Check it twice, you know, just to make sure, because you don't want to have to take this back off. You know, you plug it all together and you go to use it and the rudder doesn't work. And you're like, oh crap, what's wrong with the rudder? And then you got to take this back off, especially if you glue it. Now they don't require you gluing this. I don't even know why they want you to glue this, honestly. There's no reason to glue it. But I did. But I use contact cements. They say CA. Do not CA it out. There's just no reason to. First of all, it doesn't need to be glued at all. And it certainly doesn't need CA, so don't CA it out. Okay, so we're going to check to make sure we got the yellow to the yellow, the brown to the brown. There is a lock on this to make sure you know, it won't come apart. So not really in a sensitive area that would happen, but it's still good to have it. I like it when they supply you with a lockable plug. Okay, so now this, I'm trying to fight back down into that hole because you have to get the wire down in here. So that's why I told you to pre-push that down in there, so you won't be fighting it now. Now it'll just push down in there so that this wire will fit down there, just like that. And that's good. That looks like that's going to fit fine. And the reason for that is if you don't, it's going to pinch in the foam, and you'll probably your vertical stabilizer might be crooked because that wire will be pinched between the two foams. So you want to make sure you get that tucked down in that hole. Okay, welcome back. So you're going to need a very, very long screwdriver with a very fine tip. Okay, I originally thought this was going to work because it fit the screw really well, but it's not near long enough. This doesn't even reach the screw. So you're going to need a very long, fine tip Phillips head screwdriver because it's got to go way up inside the fuselage. Okay. So the only thing I'm running into, which is a typical problem, let me get that hinge in the hole there. Okay, there we go. Typical Hobby King, and it's really not a big deal, but a lot of times Hobby King, where you have to put a screw, there's a wire that they ran through the fuselage that's blocking that hole. So you need to get in there and push the wire off to the side so that you're not fighting that. So be aware of that. The front screw hole here the wire for the rudder is in the way, so you got to push it to the side. So make sure you do that. Get yourself a very long screwdriver with a very fine Phillips tip, and before you try to assemble it, make sure the screwdriver fits the screw well. Okay, before you get it in the airplane and fight it and find out that the screwdriver really isn't doing the job. Because this is kind of tedious here. This is a lot of fooling around to get way up inside this fuselage, especially this front screw. The water rudder's in the way, the wire's in the way, so you're going to have to work around the rudder, the water rudder, and you're just going to have to push the wire out of the way. But once you get those in there started, what I did was I turned the fuselage upside down and I put the screws in the holes, because they won't just go in. You got to fool around to get them in the hole and push them all the way through the fuselage so they're coming out the top, and then hold on to them. Get the plane on its side, and then you can work the rudder into place, the vertical stabilizer into place, and get it lined up with where it screws into the hole, and then you can final screw it together. I'll be honest with you. This was kind of tedious. This you're gonna have to have, make sure you got some patience warmed up for this one, because this will get on your nerves. So, and if you glue your elevator on, if you choose to go ahead and glue it on, glue it and let it dry, because mine kept popping off, because the contact cement didn't dry, and that just was adding to the fight to get it all lined up. So, if you're going to glue it on and let it fully dry before you move on to screwing it together, and you won't have to fight with the elevator keep coming off and getting in the way. Okay, so there we go. So it's on, and everything's good. The elevator sat down perfect, and that contact cement that I put in there will dry, and it'll be perfect. We won't have any issues with that. And there you go. So, like I said, a little tedious, but it's doable. But make sure you get yourself a very long screwdriver, and because these screws are not easy to get to. And the cavity that tiny little screw goes into is a good 1/2 inch drill bit size hole. So the screwdriver just swims around in the hole trying to find the screw head. So that didn't help either. So anyway, all right, good. So we got that on. That's nice and solid. Very nice. That fit on there very well. I guess I could probably have centered that slightly, but I'm gonna leave it alone. It's all right. Okay, so next, I think putting the main wing on is the best choice next. I think that's going to be the best thing to do here. I don't see any reason to. Well, okay, so the water rudder's already set. Hopefully it's where it needs to be. The ball links for the elevator, though, are not, and you're probably going to have to take the wing back off to put a radio in it. So I would suggest, and that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a receiver in it and plug in the elevator and rudder so that I can set, there's a set screw on the elevator horn and the rudder horn. One of those pinned into the arm, and then you put the push rods through it and cinch it down with a grub screw to hold that. And that's how you adjust these. I mean, you can adjust them at the end, but that's a real pain on something this long because the wire twists. It's much easier to just clip them on and then set them at the servo. So that's what I'm going to do. So let me stop the video, put a receiver in this so I can center up the elevators and get them set. Because once we put the wing on, we won't have to take it back off. So be right back. Okay, welcome back. So I've got a receiver in it, bound up. Guys, listen, for one of the things I highly recommend when you're setting up airplanes, it makes it so much easier. Get yourself a battery, a 2-cell battery pack, and it can be a flight pack, but make sure when you buy it, it's going to be marked a receiver pack, and it usually will have, this one, I didn't care that it didn't have a lead on it, but usually it's going to come with a lead on it, like an XD60 or a Dean's or something. This one didn't come with one, but you can buy them that way, and it's a regular flight pack. This is I believe this is like a 30C. Let me look here. Yeah, I can't see it, but anyway, you know, you can get batteries that have a servo lead on it, which is what this has. So it's got a servo lead to plug straight into the receiver, and then you can. It's a LiPo battery. It's got a regular, you know, balance lead on it, and then it'll actually have usually an XD60 or a Dean's or maybe a EC5, EC3, something, and then you can use it as a flight pack. But it's also great to just plug it directly into the radio to power your radio, instead of having to, like on this particular airplane, the ESCs are in the wing, and I haven't mounted the wing yet, so it's impossible to fumble. I mean, you could do it, but it's a pain in the butt. This makes it so much easier. So I highly recommend you guys get yourself at least one. You can use as a flight pack, and pick a size that works for you. This is a 3.6, and this battery is designed for my big pattern airplane, but it's designed to be a flight pack, not a flying a radio pack, not a flying pack. But it could be both. So anyway, so I've got this hooked up. So I've got my elevator servo hooked up, and I've loosened the grub screw on the receiver. So now I'm going to snap on the ball connectors here on the two elevators. Okay, so that one is because this makes it so much easier, guys. So you don't have to sit there and try to twist them, hold it with a pair of pliers, and all that nonsense. Okay, so I'm just going to snap these in place. They're already screwed on to the push rods at about halfway. So there is adjustment if I needed it, but with this kind of setup, you don't ever need to adjust it out here on the end. You just loosen the rub screw and adjust it inside the airplane. Okay, so both my elevators are on, and now I'm just going to push them both down to what I believe to be neutral. I'm going to look at the end here, and that looks pretty good there. This one's still going to come down here. Okay. Yeah, that looks pretty good there. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. We'll start there anyway. It looks pretty close. Actually, this one, let me look one more time here. So what I'm looking at is the end of the elevator, and I want the connection to be straight. So I'm looking at, I'm just pushing this down until I get it, perfectly straight there. And then I'm going to do this side the same way. And then look at it in the back here. And that looks pretty good. All right. So we're going to set, reset the jam, the grub screw here that's on the servo arm. Okay. Okay. All right. So now my elevators are working together, and they seem to be
I always check to see if they look like they're throwing the same amount. These do not look like. I think I'm getting more up elevator on the. And that can happen, guys, because the. Down looks good, but the up seems to be going farther on this side. All right, so I'm going to loosen it up and I'm going to adjust the right one slightly, and then we're good. I'm going to push this one down just a hair. Let's see how that is. Yeah, we're still not right. Huh, I wonder why. All right, I'm going to adjust that down a little bit more. So you got to do all this adjusting before you put the wing on, because you can't get to this without taking the wing back off. So that's why I'm adjusting it now with that flight pack. So once I put the wing on, I don't have to take it back off. How does that work? And okay, I'm gonna try adjusting it one more time here. All right, let me try it right there. And of course, you know, once you get these set even with each other, you can always program the radio to cut down the throws or trim it up and down so that they both go up and down together, because they're hooked to the same servo arm in the exact same position. Okay, that looks pretty good. Yeah, I think that's going to be all right. Yeah, I like that. Okay, all right. So now we got the elevator set, rudder is set. Let me plug in the rudder, and we'll see if that's okay. So there's two servos on the rudders, guys. There's one on the water rudder, and then there's the rudder that's up inside the airplane. Yeah, up on the vertical or the vertical staff. So you got two rudder servos wide together in the back. So let's see how they're working. They're backwards, but they're working. So let me switch that real quick. Simple fix there. Okay. Now the rudder's working the right direction, and is it centered? Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. All right, so that looks good. All right. So last thing I'm going to do here, we're going to put those two screws that hold that bottom hinge in place. So let me go ahead and screw those in, and then we'll be done with. Then we can move on to the wings. So I believe those are the two I need. These are the 4 machine screws. Yep. These are the 2 wing screws, and those are the 4 for the pontoons. Okay. All right. So let me put these screws in the tail here to capture the that bottom hinge. I'm not going to screw it all the way in until I have them both in, and I'm going to do them a little at a time. I want to see if it. I want to see if they hit the middle exactly right or not. Yeah, it looks like they hit pretty good. All right, so is that going to hold of it now? Yep. Okay, that's definitely secured, so. All right. So that's perfect. That looks good. Let me work this. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to pause it here. I'm going to unplug the radio and get the receiver up to the nose area, and we're going to put the wing on next. So stand by. Okay. So according to the instructions, best I can tell, this little nub that's on here, there's a little nub on it. You want that facing down. So you want that facing the bottom of the wing. So just make sure that you insert it with it going down, whether you're working on the wing right side up or upside down, in the flight condition position, top of the wing, top of the outer wing. You want that little nub facing down. Okay, you put it in there, and then you're going to slide it in here. Now they've got plugs here to plug in. And I'm going to do that here. Now they've got the light wire is marked with a white dot, so make sure you put the dot to dot, and again make sure you get the orientation correct, because you only have 2 wires on the light, but it's going to a 3-wire extension. It'll plug in both ways, but only one way will it work. So you want to make sure the black wire is lined up with the brown wire. And 2 dots are facing each other. You see both dots when you plug it together. Okay, so that's important. You don't want to. If you plug that in upside down, it won't. Your light won't work. You got to have it plugged in the right way. And then obviously the other 2 go together. And again, make sure you got the orientation correct. Yellow to yellow, brown to brown. Okay. Now, I think there's room to plug these in. Just stuff them in here, but I think I'm going to try to pull on the wires. To pull them inside the wing farther, so that I don't have to sit here trying to scrunch these things up. So I think I'm going to try to find the wires in the bundle in here and just pull on them. Yeah, so that, well, maybe not. Listen, if it doesn't pull, don't force it, because there might be another plug in there. And if there is, you're going to unplug the other plug. So try not to. So there should be one marked lights. Yeah, lamps. Okay, let me pull on that, see if that pulls this one in. I think that's pulling the other side. There's the other lamp wire. There's got to be 2 lamp wires in here, so. Throttle. Let's see if I can pull this out. Let's see if it shows me which one it is. All right, it doesn't appear they want to be able to pull these through, so you're just going to have to fold them up into the cavity that they give you there the best you can. I'm not a big fan of doing that, but apparently there's no room for you to do anything else. So we're just going to have to fold them in there. So fold that one over like that. Stick right in that one, and fold this one over the same way. This can sometimes be a bear to get all that wire shoved into the cavity. If you can fold it back over itself and then stick it in it, that usually helps. Take up less space. It makes it easier to plug it in. Okay, so these aren't lining up really good. So what I suggest you do is take your 2.0 driver, stick it in the hole, and get this aligned before you try putting a screw in. All right, just push it in there. Pull this down into position, and then put your screw in. They're not lining up very well. It's going to be a bit of a fight. But you'll get it. You're just going to have to use your tool as a pry bar to get it lined up. And then we go. Got a little squeaky. A little Vaseline wouldn't hurt. I'll put a little Vaseline on the screw. It wouldn't hurt. Okay. All right. So tighten that one up. And we'll finish tightening this one up. Okay. All right. There you go. Okay. So for the final assembly, the wires are not really long enough to put the receiver in afterwards. So if you're going to mount your receiver, mount it to the bottom of the wing, plug everything in, so that when you put the wing on, it all goes in together, because you can't. They don't give you long enough wires to reach the receiver up in the battery bay. So plug everything in first. Then put your final assembly, put the wing on, and you'll be good to go. So I've got this all programmed up. Now, if you want to run the reversers, you need at least a 7-channel receiver. This is a 6-channel receiver. So what's happening is I've got it on the reversers are on channel 5, but it's only reversing the one motor which I can put a Y connector on it and reverse both motors, but I can't differential thrust them. So, but right now I have the one motor reversing. So that should make some interesting flat spins in the air, and I'm going to try that just for fun. I'll take it, like 80 mistakes high, and then I'll reverse it and see what happens. It should do a hell of a flat spin. But as far as in the water, one motor reversed and the other forward would definitely turn the plane around. So if it's drifting close to shore, I could, easily flip the switch and spin the plane around and then drive it away from shore. And then if I want to back it up, I can just put the two on a Y connector and plug it back into channel 5, and then both motors will reverse and it'll back up. Okay, so, but right now, so everything's working. My flaps, I've got the flaps working, which you can't see in there. My ailerons are working. And elevator in the back, rudder. You've got a nice little flash beacon right here on the tail. See it blinking right there. I got a red nav light here. You can see it on my hand. Green one on that side. You can't see it's not in the picture, but there's a green nav light there. Nice bright red one here. They're very bright. The beacon's pretty bright too, even though it doesn't show up there. Believe me, on camera you don't see shit, but in real life that's a pretty bright beacon. So everything's working, and the motors are working. And then when I flip the switch, the other one, this motor's running backwards now. So it's going to make a violent left turn in the water or in the air. So we'll play with that just for test purposes, and then I'll put it on a Y connector if I put it in the water. I think right now I'm just going to fly it off grass, and if I'm going to do a separate video for the differential thrust on this airplane, because if you're not going to use it, you don't need to watch the rest of this video. So I'm going to stop it here, and I'm going to do a separate video on the differential thrust. I have to see how I need to hook that up. Might have to mix it in the rudder channel, or I don't know. I'm going to see how they want it done with the ESCs that they have in here, because there's a separate wire for each ESC to reverse it, and I'm not sure if I put those mixed on the rudder channel, just the mixing wire, or do I put the yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Or do I have to just, probably going to have to put the throttles on separate channels, and then the reversers would have to be on separate channels. Or if you just want it to back up straight, I could put a Y connector on that and then put the throttles on different channels. So might be able to get it done with a 6-channel receiver. I'll do a separate video on that. But if I take the well, no, because I still won't have enough for it. Yeah, so if we're going to do differential thrust and reverse, we're going to need a minimum of 7 channels or 8. But on a 6-channel, what I've got is I can still do the backup by putting a Y connector on it and plug it into the gear channel, and it'll back straight up and forward, and no problem. But we won't have differential thrust. So if you want the differential thrust on this one, I'm going to do a separate video for that. But we're done with the plane. It's all finished up. Everything went together pretty good. We had a little trouble. The wing halves were a bit of a struggle to put on. Nothing outrageous, but like I said, use your tool, go in the hole and pry it. Use this as an alignment tool to get it, pulled in there. You might have to actually overextend it a little bit to crush the foam or stretch the foam enough to get it aligned up so you can get the screw in. That's really the only issue I really had. The tail going on was, like I said, you're going to need a very long screwdriver for that. This baby here is pretty long, and that's what I needed to use. So you need a screwdriver that's almost as tall as your radio transmitter. It's taller than the radio, but not quite as tall as the antenna. So for a frame of reference, you're going to need one this long to get those back screws in. They're really a reach. Other than that, guys, I think it went together pretty well. I don't have any major issues. Came out nice, looks good. It's a beautiful airplane. Can't wait to fly it. And that's going to do it for this build. Again, I'll do a separate video for the thrust, thrust vectoring or differential thrust on this, on a separate video for those of you that want to do that. But for now, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you on the next review, next build, next review. Keep a watch out for the maiden flight video, and we'll see you on the next review. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.